Did you know the sharpest weapon in Hawkins isn't a nail bat, it's a radio signal? Outsiders see small-town routine, pranks, and harmless science. 11 sees one thing: a door that must not stay open. Before you start watching the finale, let's chart the show's evolution across its 4-season landscape. Every missing kid, every cracked gate, every cover-up wrapped up in 18 minutes. Season 1 starts off with a door you can't keep shut. It's November 6, 1983. 4 kids are playing D&D in a cozy basement. By morning, the Demogorgon isn't just a game piece. Will Byers vanishes on his bike, and whatever took him walks through locks like they're nothing. In Hawkins, a missing kid usually means flyers and waiting. Joyce Byers doesn't wait. She hears her son breathing through static, sees lights blink in patterns, and turns her house into a message board. People call her crazy, she calls it proof. Chief Jim Hopper starts like it's routine paperwork. It isn't. The bike isn't where a runaway leaves it. The body they pull from the quarry won't pass an autopsy. And Hawkins National Laboratory looks friendly until you try the door Hopper keeps pushing. The door pushes back. Meanwhile, Mike, Dustin, and Lucas find a terrified girl in a hospital gown, tattoo on her wrist, 011. She barely speaks, but she knows where Will is and what took him. She flips their board, explains there's a mirror world called the Upside Down, split from theirs by a tear in the lab's basement. The monster slipping between worlds finally gets a name the kids can fight: the Demogorgon. Clues pile up. Hopper cracks the morgue and finds a fake corpse stuffed with foam. Joyce tears her wallpaper and literally sees Will on the other side. Nancy Wheeler stops studying and starts hunting for her missing friend Barb with Jonathan Byers, the quiet kid who turns trap builder. Steve Harrington barges in expecting drama and ends up swinging a nail bat at a nightmare. Hawkins wants normal. The story won't allow it. Bullies shove Mike to a cliff until 11 lifts him back like it's nothing. Later, when armed agents close in, she flips a van end over end and buys the kids time. Everything points back to Dr. Martin Brenner, the papa who raised a weapon, not a child, and the experiment that tore open the gate. He tries to take Elle back. The Demogorgon gets there first. The finale becomes 2 missions. Hopper and Joyce suit up, step through the gate, and find Will tangled in living vines inside the Upside Down's version of Castle Byers. They cut him free and drag him home at the school. The Demogorgon tears through agents, turns on the kids, and 11 makes her stand. She locks eyes with Mike, spends everything she has, and disintegrates the monster and herself into the dust. A month later, Hawkins pretends it's fine. Joyce watches Will like a hawk. Hopper leaves Eggo waffles in the woods, like he's feeding a ghost. Will coughs up a slimy slug in the sink and hides it. The lights calm down. The fight doesn't. Ready for Season 2? Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter. Let's get into it. Season 2 is where the Shadow learns their names. A year has passed, but not for Will. He's back in Hawkins and still seeing a sky the wrong color and a monster stretched across it. He calls it a shadow. The gang calls it the Mind Flayer. The lab shrugs it off while Dr. Owen smiles and says everything's contained. It isn't. Under the pumpkin fields, the Upside Down is spreading like roots. Hopper hides 11 in a cabin because he couldn't save his own daughter and won't risk losing another kid. The rules are simple. Stay inside, stay quiet, but Elle isn't built to sit still. Soon sounds like never, and after one too many slammed doors she runs, trying to find her mother and a past that was stolen from her. At the arcade, a new kid shakes the party. Max Mayfield skates in, beats their high score, and doesn't ask permission to join the table. Her stepbrother Billy? All swagger and bad decisions, very human trouble in the middle of something inhuman. Will gets worse. He tells the Shadow to leave, and it moves in. Possession looks like cold rooms, Morse code taps, and frantic drawings that cover a house Joyce's boyfriend, Bob Newby, the sweetest Radio Shack hero you didn't know you needed, realizes the scribbles are a map of Hawkins. It leads Hopper into the tunnels, where Joyce hauls him out by following Bob's directions like a lifeline. Dustin, meanwhile, adopts a cute little slug he names Dart. It sprouts legs, eats the cat, and disappears into the vents to join a pack. Demodog's kid word, real teeth. When the lab torches the tunnels, the Mind Flayer sends the pack to rip the building apart. Alarms blare, doors lock. Bob stays to open them. He almost makes it. Almost breaks Joyce and the audience. 11's side quest matters. She finds her mother, learns the truth, then meets Kaylee, another survivor, who pushes Elle to aim her power. Elle stops short of revenge and heads home, because home is burning. The final plan splits like always. Joyce, Jonathan, and Nancy roast the Mind Flayer out of Will with heat and memories at Hopper's cabin. Down below, Steve Harrington, no longer the king of anything but babysitting, keeps the kids alive with a nailed bat, while Dustin proudly copies the hair routine. And at the lab, 11 faces the gate she opened as a child and slams it shut on purpose. The tunnel network dies with it. Snow falls. The snowball gives everyone one normal night. Lucas and Max dance. Nancy saves Dustin from standing alone. Mike and Elle finally get their moment. Then the camera pulls back and, in the upside down, the Mind Flayer looms over the school, waiting. And when summer hits Hawkins, Normal gets a neon makeover, a brand new mall, a strange Russian signal, and magnets that shouldn't be falling off fridges. Welcome to Season 3. In Season 3, the mall is a mask. It's 1985 and Hawkins looks shiny on the surface. Starcourt Mall lands like a spaceship in the middle of town. Neon lights, food court, everything louder and brighter. Steve's scooping ice cream in a sailor hat at Scoops Ahoy, and Robin's beside him keeping score on his bad jokes and worse flirting. Dustin comes back from science camp with a DUI radio tower big enough to ping Utah, because yes, his girlfriend is real. Only, the signal he catches isn't sweet nothings. It's Russian. In a town that names monsters after D&D, spies are just another kind of boss fight. Joyce notices the first crack. Her fridge magnets won't stick. Small wrongs point to big ones. Hopper shows up for a date in a loud shirt and gets stood up because Joyce is chasing physics, not romance. That night doesn't end with wine. It ends with fists in the old lab and a Russian enforcer named Grigory who hits like a truck. Hopper collects bruises and a nickname he definitely didn't ask for: Fat Rambo. Under Starcourt is exactly what you're afraid it is: a secret base, an elevator that shouldn't exist. Drops Dustin, Steve, Robin, and Erica Sinclair, Lucas's kid sister with a laser-guided attitude, into steel hallways and locked doors. Crates of glowing canisters feed a machine designed to blast the world open again. Once Erica's aboard, there's no forgetting it. You can't spell America without Erica. Meanwhile, the sun shines on Billy Hargrove at the pool. In the shadows, something old and angry takes the wheel. The Mind Flayer didn't die, it just lost connection. Starcourt's machine gives it a signal again. Rats liquefy, neighbors go vacant, and the flayed fuse into a pulsing mass inside an abandoned steel mill. Will feels the chill up his neck first. Scars don't care about calendars. He's back, he says, and no one argues. The human mess keeps pace with the monster one. Mike lies because Hopper threatened him and because he's 14 and terrible at honest feelings. 11 uses her powers to check up on the boys, doesn't like what she sees, and finds a real friend in Max, someone who reminds her she's a person first, not just a girlfriend. Nancy and Jonathan chase a lead at the local paper and stumble into a horror disguised as household supplies, fertilizer that becomes food when you're not human anymore. The season divides the party like a heist. Scoop's troop cracks the Russian code, gets caught, and endures a truth serum that turns corridors into fun houses. Steve and Robin puke, laugh, and say the kind of things you only say on a bathroom floor. It doesn't end in a kiss. It ends in a friendship that actually fits. Hopper and Joyce kidnap a soft-spoken scientist named Alexei who prefers cherry Slurpee to strawberry, and once he's allowed to breathe, quietly helps. Murray Bauman translates Russian and subtext with equal enthusiasm. Alexei wins a carnival prize, smiles at the idea of a normal life, and gets shot before he can have it. Hawkins doesn't hand out happy endings. Below the mall, the machine screams and spits lightning. Above ground, the Mind Flayer's new body, glossy, grotesque, built from people you waved to yesterday, targets one person, the girl who closed the door. It shreds Hopper's cabin, chases the kids through aisles, and finds out fireworks can hurt a monster if you light enough of them. In the bowels of Starcourt, Hopper and Grigory brawl until Hopper shoves him into the grinder that feeds the gate. There's no clean exit after that. Joyce looks at the two-key control panel, at the man she could have loved, and does the only thing that saves the town. She turns the keys. The machine cooks. The gate slams shut. The creature collapses like a bridge with its cables cut. Billy steps in front of 11 one last time with the worst version of himself at the wheel. She reaches past the monster to a memory, sun on a beach, a mother's voice, and for a second, the real Billy surfaces. He takes the strike meant for her and dies in Max's arms, not redeemed, but seen. 11 loses more than the fight. she loses her powers. She leaves Hawkins with the Byers because grief shrinks rooms and makes neighbors' cruel Starcourt smolders. The town blames a gas leak because that's easier to print. Half a world away, a guard opens a door and says, "Not the American." Another door, another cage, and a Demogorgon snarls like a cliffhanger. Hopper's story isn't over, and neither is Hawkins. Because 9 months later, the town tries to look normal again. Right as a new kind of nightmare starts ticking, a clock no one else can hear. Season 4 is already counting down. In Season 4, guilt has a voice. 9 months after Starcourt, Hawkins wears normal-like makeup. Underneath, something ancient and personal starts killing kids who carry more weight than they can say out loud. Chrissy Cunningham, a cheerleader with a practiced smile, and a mother who knows how to cut with a compliment, hears a clock nobody else hears, floats in a trailer, and breaks in a way this show hasn't shown us before. Eddie Munson, the metalhead who runs Hellfire and sells the kind of drugs you pretend are about fun, watches and runs. The town calls it Satan. The kids call it what it is, something new. Vecna is not a beast you beat with bear traps. He speaks in trauma and binds you with the worst version of yourself. You don't escape him with fists. You escape him with a song that proves you belong to the world again. Max Mayfield stops reading and starts writing, fills letters with the things she doesn't know how to say in a room, and then walks into a graveyard ready to die. Lucas, Steve, Dustin, and the rest jam a Walkman onto her ears and let Kate Bush yank a girl back to her body. Running up that hill becomes a spell. She runs through a mindscape of broken red stone while the real world begs her to choose it. She does. For now. California is sunny and distant from the troubled past of Hawkins. 11 tries to be Jane in Lenora Hills with a paper for school that no one claps for, and bullying that isn't monstrous but feels like it. Angela bleeds at a roller rink because anger is a weapon 11 still knows how to use even without powers. The police call it assault. The military calls it a lead. Dr. Owens arrives with a different kind of lifeline, an elevator down the middle of nowhere, and Project Nina, a tank that isn't kind, but might make her strong enough to matter again. Dr. Brenner steps out of the past with a tone that says protector and a history that says liar. 11 wants to leave, and then realizes leaving won't save anyone she loves. She stays not for him, for Hawkins. The past she revisits isn't gentle. Henry Creel was a boy who learned early that he liked pulling wings off things. He became 001, Brenner's first, the orderly with kind eyes who asked 11 to remove the device in his neck. It wasn't a tracker, it was a leash. He murders a room of children. He asks 11 to join him. She refuses and throws him into a world that remakes him as Vecna. No mask, no claws to hide behind, just a man who hates and a dimension that agrees. Across an ocean, Hopper survives by shrinking himself to bone and will. Enzo, Dimitri, a guard with a price and a conscience, tries to help for money and ends up helping for more than that. Joyce Byers gets a doll in the mail with a secret that says, "He's alive." She grabs Murray and a plane and ends up in the wilderness because that's where this show sends people who love too loud. In a gulag, Hopper fights a Demogorgon with a flaming spear and old instincts that never died. He and Joyce hug like two people who thought there would be no more hugging. They burn the things the Russians kept as trophies, a piece of the Mind Flayer's hive and a beast that never learned not to eat. Back in Hawkins, the party splits like always. Steve and Nancy wade into Lover's Lake and fall through the water into the Upside Down, where bats have tails and bites that infect. Robin keeps jokes like a shield, and it works more often than it should. Erica Sinclair talks to adults like they're the children. Eddie plays a song on a rooftop in a world that wants him dead, because distraction is half of every victory. The Metallica riff ricochets through red clouds and calls every bat with teeth away from Nancy and Steve. Eddie understands running isn't the opposite of bravery. Sometimes it's how you keep people alive. This time, he doesn't run. Dustin holds him while he bleeds out and says words too late. Eddie smiles like a kid who finally passed a test he wrote for himself. The plan, because there is always a plan, threads across state lines. In Nevada, a pizza parlor becomes a lab because a tub is a tub if you have salt and a door you can lock. Mike tells 11 what he should have said months ago and means it. She piggybacks to Hawkins on the current of her own power, finds Max in a mine filled with grandfather clocks and guilt that has been weaponized, and shoves back at a man who was once a boy who never learned to stop hurting things just because he could. In the Creel house, Lucas fights a boy who lets grief turn into cruelty. Jason's ignorance splits with the house. Hawkins swallows him not because it hates him personally, but because stories like this don't have time to teach him. Nancy, Robin, and Steve attack Vecna's body with fire and shot and fury. It knocks him out a window and still doesn't kill him. Max breaks. She dies for a minute. That counts as gate math. 11 refuses that math. She breathes life back in. Max falls into a coma that feels like a cliffhanger and a punishment for bravery. 4 wounds meet, the town cracks open, and the Upside Down stops being just a place under Hawkins. It is Hawkins now. Spores fall like a season that will not end. Ash gathers on football fields and church steps. People leave with boxes. The ones who stay serve soup in a high school gym and sweep glass into piles because work is how you keep from screaming. Hopper walks into the gym thin and alive. 11 runs to him and forgets to breathe until she remembers. Joyce watches her family rebuild itself in front of her and lets herself be held. Will Byers touches the back of his neck and tells the room what we already feel in our teeth. Vecna isn't dead. He's patient. He's here. Now, the gate is a wound. 11's power is back, but Max needs more than power. Hopper's tougher. Joyce trusts her eyes. Steve chooses bravery. Robin stays true. Nancy finds answers. Lucas shows up. Dustin turns grief into fuel. Will senses the shift. Mike finally speaks. Max waits in the dark. They'll build her a world worth waking to. The end won't be about the biggest punch. It's about who refuses to leave. Lights are a language, radios are bridges. Doors close when enough hands pull. The more we revisit the clues, the closer we get to the truth behind that final fight. And now, everything points to the final chapter. Season 5 isn't just another door, it's the last one. Hawkins and the Upside Down are bleeding together, Vecna is rebuilding, and every character we've followed since 1983 is heading into a fight that finally demands everything they've learned and everything they've lost. The question isn't who can win, it's what the world will look like if they do. The end won't be about shutting a gate, it'll be about what survives after it. So tell us, what do you think the final shot of Season 5 will be? Drop your theories below and hit subscribe so you don't miss the last ride through Hawkins.